Our journey continues. After fleeing to West Berlin with Harry Dieterling on the last open train connection, we now take off to the sky and accompany two families who, like Harry's family, have decided to leave East Germany for good with a daring idea: to fly across the border in a hot air balloon. Amidst the grey monotony of everyday life in East Germany, surrounded by the hum of machines and the acrid smell of plastic at the VEB polymer factory in Pößnig, two men began to harbor an impossible dream: freedom. Peter Strelzig and Günther Wetzel, ordinary workers but visionaries at heart, dared to attempt the unthinkable. For months, in secret and under constant fear of discovery, they and their wives gathered rolls of fabric, stitched them together by night, built burners and gondolas, and calculated every risk, all to construct a hot air balloon that might lift them over the wall to the west. The balloon, they determined, would need to hold 2,800 cubic meters of air, enough to carry both families to freedom. And so on summer night in July the 3rd, 1979, their creation stood ready in a lonely field between Oberlemnitz and Heinersdorf. A balloon hand-sewn from dreams and scraps of fabric, a fragile vessel pointing towards freedom. The burner roared to life, filling the night with its flickering flame. Then the balloon began to rise, almost silently, carrying both families towards the clouds and away from the land that held them captive. For a moment it worked. The world below them disappeared into darkness. They rose into the unknown, into hope, but soon something changed. The fabric became heavy. The air inside cooled too quickly. The large balloon began to sag, then sank slowly and faster. After 30 long minutes, it hit the ground 2 kilometers from the border. The dream had fallen apart, back to earth. In the darkness, they gathered their children, their tools, and their silence and disappeared into the night. No one had seen them. The balloon lay in the forest like a wounded animal, torn and soaked by the rain. A few days later, a people's police officer who was collecting wood in the forest in his spare time discovered the remains of the balloon, but did not report his find because he had entered the restricted area along the border without permission. Days later, a hunter found the wreckage and reported it to the police, and they reported it to the state protection, the Stasi. The Stasi arrived in the area. Search teams, dogs, interrogations, an advertisement appeared in the Volkswacht, the party newspaper, asking citizens for information about a barometer, a pocket knife, and a pair of pliers, allegedly in connection with a serious crime. No one knew that they weren't looking for a criminal, but for dreamers. But while the state was hunting ghosts, the two families, Strelzig and Wetzel, were already making new plans. Because the balloon that had crashed was not their first. There had been others, primitive, fragile attempts that broke before they could even take off. Each failure had taught them something new. Each setback had only strengthened their determination. The families built a total of 3 balloons. The first made from linen fabric from a leather bag factory, but proved unsuitable during a filling test, so the families destroyed it. Now they began again, for the 3rd time, in silence and in the shadows. This time, all purchases were small, all errands far away, every movement carefully hidden from suspicion. Stitch by stitch, they sewed together a new creation, a patchwork of umbrella silk, taffeta, tent, nylon, and fine bed linen. When it was finished, it towered above them, 28 meters high, 20 meters wide, and huge and magnificent. complacent. The gondola was simple, a wooden platform barely big enough for 8 people, held together by ropes and hope. What they had built was more than a machine. It was a statement of faith, of defiance, of the human spirit's refusal to surrender. A silent cry woven from fear and determination, ready to rise again to conquer the sky and history itself. Immediately after the last pieces of fabric had been purchased and sewn together in Jena on September 15, 1979, the families decided to set off that same night due to the favorable weather conditions. The launch site was once again the meadow near Oberlemnitz, from where the failed escape attempt from July the 3rd had already started. During the flight, the 8 people crouched with their backs against the railing and held on to the 4 propane gas cylinders standing in the middle. The flight lasted 28 minutes and covered a distance of 18 kilometers. The balloon landed in a wooden area near Naila in the district of Hof. After landing, the women and children intentionally hid in the forest, while the 2 men explored the area and eventually came across the Bavarian police patrol, who confirmed that they had reached the Federal Republic of Germany. They had done the impossible. With nothing but fabric, fire, and faith, 2 ordinary families had defied an entire regime. From a small town in East Germany, they had risen into the night and crossed a border meant to last forever. For Peter and Günther, the sky had become their road to liberty. But they were not alone. Because while some choose the sky to flee, others chose the earth. I will tell you the next time the story of Tunnel 57.